Today Michael and I got together over at the farm and trimmed up the rest of the trees that we weren't selling back to Fedco. We wanted to keep a few varieties for ourselves. We definitely got rid of a bunch, but these are different types of rootstock where the graft never took, and we're going to grow it out and graft onto it in the field. We've got some, prune rootstock that we can graft peaches onto. So we've just got a whole bunch of stuff here that we cleaned up and got it ready for storage to tighten it up a little bit so it doesn't take up the whole root cellar. I was not expecting this snow. You can probably see behind me there's snow. It's supposed to rain pretty heavily last night. When we woke up this morning, there was about half an inch of snow on the ground. So that's always a good reminder that, I'm coming up against it here, pushing the envelope on what needs to be done out in the garden. It's been really warm, unseasonably warm for the last couple of weeks, but I think after tonight, the temperatures at night are going to get down into the low 20s, maybe high teens, which is a little bit more normal for this time of year actually. So I did leave some potatoes out. I picked the rest of the potatoes yesterday, and I wanted Michael to take some home. Again, I thought it was going to rain last night, so I left those out. Luckily, they were covered with a blanket. I'm going to clean those up, put them in the root cellar. I need to get these trees inside before it gets too cold and get them all packed a little bit better. We packed them in sawdust to get them over here in the back of the trailer, but I need to put a little bit more in there and pack it down with some water once they're inside. I don't like to pick them up and move them when they're full of water because it's a lot heavier. But after I do that, clean up the potatoes, I'm going to harvest the carrots because I've been putting that off. So I'll do that, and then hopefully I can get these trees inside. I'll have to clean up a little bit inside because it's kind of messy. But let's go get started on the carrots.
There are several crops in the main garden that benefit greatly from a bit of cold. Actually, I'm not sure the crops themselves care one way or the other, but their flavor profile changes dramatically, for the better, with the onset of frosty mornings and frigid nights. Brassicas like kale, Brussels sprouts, and cabbage all taste sweeter once they've been frosted, and the same is true, generally, for carrots and parsnips. This is actually why spring-dug parsnips are such a treat early in the season when the only thing growing outside is the circumference of the mud puddles. This is why I dig my carrots very late in the season. I don't generally want to be digging them after it snows, but we didn't get very much last night, and a little bit isn't going to hurt me, or the carrots. Even though the air is hovering around freezing, the ground is still soft and pliable, meaning the job is easier than it will be in a few weeks when everything's frozen solid, or than it would have been a few weeks ago before autumn rains softened the earth around these delicious, healthy roots. One of the reasons I got out of commercial farming was my inability to reckon with the general lack of understanding people have for the work it takes to produce the food upon which they rely. It doesn't matter if they're reliant on the grocery store or the local farmer. Lots and lots of calories went into producing what you're eating. In the case of food from the grocery store, those calories were likely burned by tractors and poorly treated, badly paid migrant farm workers. In the case of your local small-scale farm, there was likely still a tractor involved, though it was probably a lot smaller, and there was still the elbow grease of some farm workers, migrant or otherwise, who were hopefully paid and treated better. But at either end of the spectrum, and everywhere in between, there was a lot of hard work involved, and usually that work involved some intense discomfort at some point. Of the 365 days you could potentially be harvesting, maybe 5 or 6 are perfect days with regard to temperature, precipitation, wind, light, etc. Seeing a video of myself washing carrots in the snow, which I've done a lot over the years, reminds me just how hard farmers work. Not that I needed reminding, really. When was the last time you got covered in mud and had to stand with your hands in running water on an afternoon with failing light and falling temperatures? I'm only washing enough carrots for my family. Imagine doing this for hours and dozens of these crates until your fingers are red, raw, and cracked, and you're so cold you're shivering. Now imagine carting all your hard work to market only to have someone complain about the price. Remember that the next time you buy something to eat. At the grocery store, prices do not reflect the realities that went into production. Water in places like California is nearly completely subsidized by the federal and state governments. Farm workers picking tomatoes in Immokalee, Florida had to organize and fight for years just to get Taco Bell to pay another penny per pound for the tomatoes in their tacos. And that extra penny still doesn't provide a living. I built this root cellar shortly after Emily and I bought this house and moved in. Like many projects in life, it needed to be done yesterday. I was still farming commercially then, and, at the time, I was operating the largest year-round CSA in Maine. One way I was able to do that was by storing appropriate crops in this root cellar, which is really just an insulated closet with an exterior window that allows me to control the temperature inside. The root cellar served its purpose wonderfully. It was cheap, fast, and allowed my business to continue into the winter, when many Maine farmers are not selling anything. But it leaves a lot to be desired. It takes up too much real estate in my basement workshop. It's difficult for Emily to get into since the door is not hinged and must be lifted into place or slid out of the way. And it's far too big for what I need, now that I'm storing at a homestead scale instead of at the commercial scale. My to-do list this fall includes rebuilding it with individual compartments, hinged doors, and a more appropriate size. But for now, I just need to get things inside before winter sets in. The root cellar rebuild is a project for another day. Stay tuned. More importantly right now is to clean enough of this space to get the trees inside. The workshop gets this way over the course of each summer. The last time it was cleaned up properly was just before Michael arrived to graft fruit trees last spring. I'm definitely approaching that point where I get so irritated at the clutter that I have a cleaning night. It's not in the cards tonight, but it will happen soon.